for all the airlines markets worldwide. For more information on BSP Link users and which type of user your airline currently has assigned, please contact the IATA customer service team. Now, when you first log into BSP Link after TIP is launched, you'll be taken to the home page. So for those of you that are going to log in and follow along with the webinar, if you'd like to log in now, and then we'll start the reports configuration. If you can let us know in the questions box when you're ready to continue, that would be great. Thank you. Hi everyone, just want to do a quick sound check, make sure that you can hear me, and make sure that everybody that wants to be logged in to follow along is logged in. Great, so we shall continue now with the TIP reports configuration. So in the left-hand dark blue bar, there's a TIP item. So we'll expand that to see the reports configuration menu item. And when we click on that, we see the reports configuration field. So in the reports configuration menu, an airline HOMO user can set up its TIP post-transaction monitoring report preferences. Now the data that you see on the screen here is test data. So you may not see all of these types of reports in the production system. So 7A and 7B, for example, they don't yet exist for airlines in the production system. And the other reports are available daily, monthly, but generally the airline reports in production are just available monthly. Okay, so I'll just walk through each of the reports and what they are about first, and then we'll walk through the configuration. So report 2A, that's the TIP enrolled ATMs transaction with airline consent report. It's a report listing the transactions issued by the agents using an enrolled ATM product with the airline consent. The report will indicate the transactions with or without cost recovery and the calculated cost recovery amount. Report 4, it's the TIP enrolled ATMs transactions without airline consent. The report lists the detected transactions issued by agents using an enrolled ATM product without airline consent. And report 8 is unenrolled ATMs, potentially non-compliant transactions, a report that lists the detected transactions issued by agents using a potential unenrolled ATM product. These are identified based on market intelligence available to IATA. Okay, so let's take a look at the report configuration. If you've never set up your reports before, you won't have the grid on the top, you'll just have the grid on the bottom, which is the available reports. The grid on the top is for reports that you've already subscribed to. I'm gonna. So, as you can see in the top part of the grid, I don't have a TIP 2A report, so I'm going to set up one of those as we go through now. So in the format column, you can choose from CSV and PDF. Now, currently in production, airlines are only able to select monthly, so I'll make mine the same. And the channel will be BSP Link, which means that the reports are delivered into BSP Link, and I'll show you how to pick up the reports in a second. The ISO country is the country where the airline will receive the consolidated report, which includes all the countries already live with TIP. This can be for a different ISO, or for each report they can all be the same. So we could choose, for example, A5 for TIP 2A. You'll notice that the data for the ISOs is different here. Again, that's because this is a test system, not a production system. So I could choose to receive tip 2A in A5, where I'm receiving all the other ones in N3. I can check the box to say that I require this report. Now, the easiest way to set up the reports configuration initially is to configure multiple reports at the same time. However, it is possible to set up each report individually. So if I wanted to set up tip 8 for monthly to BSP link to be delivered in N3, and click my checkbox. When I click submit, I'll add both of those reports to the table above. So when I go back to my reports configuration, you'll be able to see that I now have a monthly tip 8 and I now have a monthly 2A. If I set up 2A incorrectly, I click the modify button for that line. Let's say I really wanted it in N3, but I set it up in A5 by accident, and I click submit. When I go back to reports configuration, you'll see that the tip 2A has now been changed to N3. If I want to stop subscribing to a report, I also click the modify button on the line for the report, and I just click the required box so that it is no longer required. When I click submit, I'll be prompted if I want to delete the record, and I say OK. And then when I go back to the reports configuration, tip 7A no longer appears in my list. So any of these reports that you subscribe to will be delivered to you in the Files, Download Files menu. They'll appear in this list as a link for you to be able to download. Are there any questions on the report setup? There is a question from Joanna. Can we have the explanation to all reports on the later stage? I hope that I covered that information just now for you, but we will send out some documentation later on where we give you the detailed coverage of the reports. So if everybody is happy to move on, we will take a look at the providers and products setup. So this is again under the tip menu, under global providers and products. You can select a filter, you can select by country or region, or you can select everything. Once you've decided on your filter, if you click submit, you'll be provided with a list of the providers and products. This is just a summary list, and you can see which countries the providers and products are available in. To view detailed information on the provider, just click the provider code, and then you'll see contact information, email address and phone number. You can see the name of the person you should contact, and you can actually download this information by clicking on the download link. To access more detailed information on the product, if you click the product code, this will give you further information on the product, including settlement terms and the van type. Again, you can download this information by clicking on the download link. So if everybody is happy with global providers and products, I shall move us on to global configuration. Okay. So in the global configuration menu, an airline HOMU user can set up the main parameter of airline consent. The first step is for the airline to define if the consent setup will be managed by the HOMU user for all countries where the airline participates, or if it will be managed by the respective LOMU user. An important note to remember on consent setup and cost recovery options. IATA makes no recommendation with respect to the acceptability or appropriateness of any specific remittance method for your airline. which shall always remain an independent business decision made by your airline. Your airline is also fully responsible for assessing the legal and regulatory compliance of any such decision under applicable law. The airline's individual consent set up to accept with or without cost recovery for an ATM-specific product will be displayed to each agent individually so that agents can decide to use a certain ATM product or not. If selected by your airline, cost recovery amount or percentage will be included in the relevant tip report for your information. However, IATA will not automatically collect these amounts from the agent, and each airline is free to decide on how to collect these from the airline. When you first log into the global configuration for TIP, the global auto approval rules for product consent will be set to yes as default. This means that the HOMO user will have permissions to configure the consent rules. If it is set to no, it means the LOMO user will have responsibility for configuring the consent rules. If you set it to no, it's worth noting that the automatic consent to ATM products at country level is disabled. The automatic consent to ATM products is used to define a default consent policy that will apply for all new ATM products for all countries in which TIP is already rolled out. The first time you access the global configuration screen, the global auto approval rules for ATM products consent will be set to yes, and the automatic consent to ATM products will be set to no consent to all.
Hi. This is Oscar. I just want to stress and to highlight how powerful is this configuration. Because when you do it, you need to bear in mind that you're impacting all the countries where TIP is live. So you need to be conscious when you do this configuration, this global configuration. I think it's very important to note that.
Thank you, Oscar. The available consent options are no consent at all, which is the default setup. All new ATM products will be set to no consent. Accept all without cost recovery. All new ATM products will be accepted by the airline. Accept all with cost recovery. All new ATM products will be accepted by the airline, but the airline may charge a cost recovery for the use of ATM products. When selecting this option, the airline will be able to define a cost recovery fixed amount or percentage per BSP country applicable for all ATM products in that country. The final option is manual configuration. When selecting this option, the user will be able to define the consent policy for each ATM product. In case of cost recovery, the user will be able to define the cost recovery amount or percentage per ATM product in the Global Products and Providers menu. So we click on the automatic consent to ATM products country level to make our selection. And I'll walk through each of the options so you can see how they impact the screen. The first one, accept or without cost recovery. There are no further selection options for this item. And if you select this item, it means that you accept everything without cost recovery, so there's no changes to be made. Accept all with cost recovery. There are further options for this selection. You can enter the cost recovery type, the amount and the currency for each country. So for example, for A5, we could set a fixed amount, and for G1, we could set a percentage. And for HC, we might set nothing. And for N3, again, we might set a fixed amount. So if we set a fixed amount, we must use the currency layout of the country. So for example, this one is Australian dollars, and they are to 2 decimal places. Some countries have 3 or 4 decimal places, but I believe this one is Norwegian krone, and they also have 2 decimal places. If you've chosen percentage, you don't need to choose a currency, and you can just submit, and then your cost recovery will be applied. So no consent to all. This also has no other options, but this means that there is no consent to any of the products that are within TIP. and then manual configuration. Manual configuration, as I said earlier, allows you to set the consent for each ATM product, and that's the one that I'm going to demonstrate today. I'll click Submit. So manual configuration is accessed via the Global Consents Management country level menu. Again, you can set your filter for this at region or by country or per provider or product. In this case, I'm just going to select all. So this airline that we've used has been used for testing, and it has some consents already set, some that are, have effective end dates. So we'll just work through and we'll modify one of the consents that we can see right now. So to enable the fields for the consent, we must click the checkbox, and then we're able to select items in the screen. So, for example, product A1 is currently set to yes, which means that's without cost recovery. I'm going to set that to no. I don't have to fill out any of the other information. And then I just click Modify Consents. Then when I go back in, that one should now have an end date. And again, if I click the checkbox for this one, change that from yes to cost recovery, I'll get the notice and disclaimer, which you guys should read when you are doing this for yourselves. And then if we choose percentage, 0.25, and then when we click modify consents, it'll apply the changes, and we go back in, and you can see it's added an end date. Sorry, it's added an effective from date to that one, which is effective from tomorrow. Now, at the bottom part of the screen that you can see, you'll see add consents, and it works the same way that the modify consents work. So you just click the check box for the consent that you wish to provide, choose your consent type, choose your cost recovery type, and then you enter your cost recovery amount. If necessary, choose your cost recovery, set the effective from date, and then click add consents. If you don't want to set consent at product level, then you would go back to the global configuration screen and set the global consent from there. This allows you to have a more granular control of your consent. Are there any questions on country level consent? If not, I'll move on to agent level. So I haven't seen any questions pop up on country level consent, but feel free to ask questions as we go and we'll try our best to answer them. Even more granular than consent at product level is the newly released functionality which went into production last Wednesday of agent level consent. This is accessed on the left-hand menu at Global Consents Management agent level. Now you can set your filter on this screen as well. You can filter by country. Because we are setting consent at agent level, you must enter an agent. You can select one from the drop down, or you can start typing a number and select that from the drop down if you know the agent's number, or you can start typing the agent name if you know the agent name and select it from there. You can also select the specific product that you wish to provide consent or not provide consent for, and the provider as well. So once we've chosen and set our filter, click Submit. And you'll see now at the top of the page, these are the consents at country level. You'll see for product A1, this is accept all without cost recovery from the 31st of August to the 3rd of September. And for product ER, it's accept all without cost recovery from the 31st of August to the 3rd of September, but from the 4th of September, that changes to cost recovery with a percentage of 1.25%. And the final product 16, is just set to yes. And that expires tomorrow, at the end of today, sorry. So what that means, at the end of today, product A1 and product 16 will be no consent to all at country level. So in the table below, that's the agent level consent, and you can set a different consent here to the country level. So if we take product A1 as the example, and we say, this is set to yes at country level until the 3rd of September. Well, for this agent, I still want to be able to select to consent. And if we set the date as being the 4th of September, that will be a seamless continuation that this agent will still be allowed to have consent. Because I've chosen yes rather than without cost recovery, I don't need to fill out any of the other fields. And if we take product ER, this is set to yes until the 3rd of September and cost recovery from the 4th of September. But we might decide that we don't want to give consent to this product for this agent. So we'll set that to no. And for the final product 16, we might decide that we want to leave them in the same consent level as the country one, so we won't make any changes to that one. Once we click add or modify consents, that will apply the changes. Submit, and you'll now see that the effective from date for the agents have been grayed out, so we can't make any further changes at the moment, but that's been applied now. So the agent level consents continue on from the country level consents. And if we go to global consents query, here we go. This gives you a summary of all of the consents that are current. So at the top, if we look at product A1, you'll be able to see that at country level, this product consents yes without cost recovery between the 31st of August and the 3rd of September. And at agent level, the consent for these two agents has been changed for, from the 4th of September for 602.0002 and from the 31st of August for 602.0169. So the country level consents are in these columns and the agent level consents are in these columns. You can also review your consent history by clicking on the Global Consents History in the menu, applying your filter and clicking Submit. This will let you have a snapshot of historic consents. In the consents query, there were a number of consents that finished on the 3rd of September. And at midnight tonight, they will roll over into this screen and you'll no longer be able to see them on the consents query screen. The final part of the webinar demonstration today is the email alerts. This is accessed via the email alert maintenance menu on the left-hand side. So in this menu, an airline Homo user can set up email alerts to receive notifications of new products enrolled and changes to consents. Once you've entered your information and clicked apply, you'll receive an on-screen confirmation that the subscription was successful. You will also receive confirmation via email. Please note that agents also are able to subscribe to email alerts, and they will also receive notifications of changes to consent. This includes accept all with cost recovery, and they will be notified of the cost recovery information. This concludes the demo webinar for today. please let us know if you have any questions. We'd be happy to answer them for you.
Hi, Oscar again here. We will allow some minutes for you to articulate your questions, and please write them on the question panel, and we will address them. I think one comment on the last on the email notification. This is following the normal design of or way of working from BSP Link, where this email notification will need to be set up per country by country. This is we're following the same design and structure as BSP Link, so just for you to be aware on the email notification and the configuration that needs to be done country by country.
A question has come through from Johan on the email notification. Can we provide two names at head office level? Yes, you can. You need to separate them by a comma, but I will clarify that one, Johan. It's either a comma or a semicolon. So when we send the notes out in response to the questions, we'll make sure we clarify that one. Does anybody else have any other questions they'd like to ask us? Or if you don't have any now, you can get in touch with us after the webinar. We'll wait another minute in case there's any other questions that anybody has.
Hi, everyone. So we gather that there are no further questions. So we really would like to thank you for your time. And I hope that you were able to follow us with at your site with your home credentials, which is the main purpose of this webinar. In the case that you didn't have the user or your credentials and you want to do it offline, we will send you the recorded version of this webinar. So and also to share with other colleagues that perhaps were not able to attend this webinar. That said, we wrap up this webinar and we thank you again. Thank you very much. Thanks, Johan. Thank you, Joanna. Thank you very much, everyone. Thank you, Matt.